So that will lead us to. I'm switching the order here because I think it's going to be very easy for you to answer.
It's a good transition.
But yeah, so one of our reoccurring bits on here is we say which is better, where we pick two things and compare them. And obviously, with you, we knew we were throwing the Super NES up there, and it's a little too obvious to go Genesis because Super NES is way better than Genesis.
Shut the fuck up. I think we established last episode that the Genesis was way better in a lot of ways.
We didn't, Jim, and every time we've done a poll, everyone agrees Super NES is better. But putting that aside,
Polls are bullshit. You can't trust them.
which is better between the Super NES and NES? And for the purpose of the argument or discussion, if you will, you can take into account historical context, because if you do strictly technical specs, there's no contest. So weighing in historical impact and all that, which do you think is better?
Super Nintendo. You could put like
So
you can put
I'm shocked.
like
I am
literally
shocked.
Shocker.
literally anything.
Wait, do we have the right guy on?
Everything else combined versus Super Nintendo. And I'm going Super Nintendo. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't go that far. But no, it's Super Nintendo.
Jim just shit his pants.
Like
a little bit.
SNES versus DOS or like Amiga or something. I don't know. Yeah.
No, now we're not talking any
Amiga
of the
would
Brits
get
here,
like
so
stomped.
we
My
don't have to worry
face
about
is
that.
Curb stomped or something. But, yeah, exactly.
You don't like the Specky?
I've dealt with that firsthand, by the way. Oh my god.
Oh, so have we, and we're way smaller than you, and even we get the what are you doing shitting on the Specky?
The what?
We're just like, come on now.
Yeah.
They call it the Specky because it's their little thing that costs like $30, and the games took 20 minutes to load, and had like 2 colors, and it sounded like shit, and it played like shit, but you
Damn it,
enjoyed
Jim!
that. What? They're Weird Islanders, and they had nothing else. All right.
Jim, let
was
the man
done.
finish his
I was
point.
done.
I'm sorry. I let my blatant English racism
I just wanted
come
to
out.
say that Amiga is trash. No, I'm just kidding. That'll get the views.
So Alex, all right. So one thing I always do with
Yeah.
Jim is I do devil's advocate. No matter what his point is, I'll pick the opposite. So the only argument I would say with the NES, if you were going to say that was better, for a couple reasons. One, it's basically the thing that saved home console game sales after the big crash of the gaming market. And it kind of reinvigorated a whole new generation and really changed the way that gaming is done. And when you think of the original console, obviously there was tons. The Magnavox Odyssey, the Fairchild was the first with actual cartridges. Like, you go back and then Atari, but really NES, like, to most people's knowledge, you think that's like the real standard for gaming. And with Nintendo creating all those first party games that basically have lived on still to today, and a lot of them were passed through the Super NES, I feel like historically those games just what it did just set such a friggin' foundation for what Nintendo is, that would be an argument of why that is actually better than the Super NES.
I think you could make an argument for the Sega Master System that did something similar on a worldwide perspective from back then, because the NES was really a huge success in the United States. It was not that big of a success in Europe, and it was not that big of a success in South America, and not sure how it did in Japan after
It was a big
after
success
a
as a
certain
Famicom,
point, though.
yeah.
And I know Sega was basically a flop, and I just realized that as I'm talking. But no, I know there's not that many. That's the tricky part of it, though, is that the folks in Europe and the folks in South America was a big hit for Sega, but Europe was playing mostly computer stuff, like the you were just talking about all those freaking systems. God, there were like 50 of them. It seems like. Oh
Well, you're not just bringing up the BBC Micro? Come
oh
on now.
my god! You know you're
Cultured
gonna get
swine.
something like that. But yeah, no. That would be my only. Yeah, that's all I got. That's my weak argument. It gets that. Yeah, no.
No, I know what you're saying.
But I mean, the NES did have the two
Yeah.
biggest markets though, where it
US
was the
and
big
Japan.
seller. Like you have
And
the
let-
U.S. and Japan. You don't need the South Americas and the Englands of the world.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
go
don't
have
know what
fun.
else.
Go have fun with your
What
things.
else to say about that? All I know is
Now,
that
let me
the
just
Super
be clear
Nintendo
on one
was
thing.
the natural. When it comes to listen. Okay, let me put it this way. I just thought of something here. What
Ah?
powers would you rather have if you were Mega Man X? Would you rather have just the regular Mega Man X powers, or would you rather have the Mega Man X2 powers, where he can dash in midair and he's got a double freaking arm cannon charge and all that sort of stuff? That's like NES versus SNES. It's like Mega Man X versus Mega Man X2. The SNES is so much more powerful. It's such an advancement over its predecessor that it's like, why am I going to bother with this? Why not just wait for the SNES and just like I'll do this instead of that and take my lumps in the meantime. I'll just suffer through my Sega Master System or my Amiga or my Specky or whatever the hell that thing is called. But yeah, that's where I'm going with that. That's my argument. And I'm sticking.
No, let me be very clear, Alex. I threw out the devil's advocate of why you could argue NES, but for me, I would say Super NES is better, not just for technical things, but the things I liked that it did was, one, the controller. It wasn't like the shitty Genesis controller where you actually had every button you need and creating shoulder buttons. And it was one of the best design controllers. It's one of my favorite, the dog bone design. But on top of that, for Nintendo, the leap from generation to generation, I think it yielded the best games for all their first-party games. And even some that just, like, I think, I personally, the Mario game, Super Metroid, Super Castlevania, all those, to me, are such a better leap and are arguably still the best games, like, even depending on how you feel, the... Zelda games, like all of them are the best for that system, and it was such a leap. Whereas from that to the N64, the games, it was what it was. But yeah, and the Super NES is the last system for Nintendo that I feel like has the best longevity of. It still looks and sounds the best. There are some classic NES games that will always. You can't fuck with, and you can't say they're bad, but there are some ones that age really poorly. So I don't know. I would still go with the Super NES, but like I said, I threw out the devil's advocate. Now I'm curious, Jim, since we know you're a Super NES hater because you think that's a system only for since you think it's a system only for JRPGs. What is your take on this one?
No, Brian, I just say people only like it because they cried at Final Fantasy VI's opera scene when they were 10, and they never got over it because they're little babies. But if I'm going to be serious about it here, like, I'm the wild card here because I have no nostalgia for really either the NES or the Super NES. And, like, while I do hate RPGs, but even beyond that point, I got to go with the Super NES because it's still, like, I have a pretty sizable, like the same size collection for both systems, and I just pop in games on the Super NES way more. Like the NES, just as a person who doesn't have the nostalgia for it, it doesn't grab me as much. I'd probably rather play the Master System over the NES, really. Maybe because it's a little bit weirder, but
well, yeah,
I don't know.
don't even throw that in there, Jim, because you're just fucking up your argument. But keep
Look,
going.
Brian, I'm trying to bring the English people back to me. Obviously,
No,
I'm United, not
and that's
divided,
only
Brian.
Brazilians. Come on, what are you doing?
By the way, it's funny you say that about
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VI because the review I made about that game, which is almost 7 years old now,
Yes.
complains about why are people
that everyone
crying
talks
this
about
opera scene
that no one talked about on the
barely has
playground,
anything
but
to do with
all of
the
a sudden
story.
everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is
Because
the most monumental
that everyone talks
event
about,
in all of
and
16-bit gaming." It's like, what? Where'd this come from?
And it's like, can you explain why? It's like, no.
The same
because it's an
way,
opera scene in a
the
Super
same way
Nintendo
everyone
game.
loved the
It's
Saturn
not a
when it's the
reason. That's
system
just a
no
thing
one
that
had
happened.
back in the fifth
Okay?
generation.
Sure. No, it's that always bothered me about that. It was just
Thank you.
It's screw that, and I've been
But
saying
yeah,
that
no,
for
but
years and years. I'm just saying I have your
Yeah,
back
but I mean,
on
like, I
this-
use that
on
as like my little
standpoint.
trolley
It's
arguing
such a
point.
trap.
But yeah, like
Yeah.
overall, like if I'm gonna
You're
play
not alone.
either of them, I'm just gonna go to the Super NES. Maybe if I want to play like an older shmup, I'll hit the NES because we talked about last week. A lot of them on the Super NES are pretty rough. Not named Axelay or Space Mega Force or UN Squadron, but exactly right. They are the good ones. Those are the ones to go for. But like,
Ooh.
yeah, like
Ooh.
I would rather go play
Those are all great
Gradius on
games.
the NES or Life Force or Salamander, whichever ones you want to call it, than any of those. But then again, I have a TurboGrafx, so I'll just go there anyway. But I'm also
but that
so.
game, that system sucks. But anyway, keep going.
How dare
Jeff.
you, sir? But yeah, no, I mean my
goodness.
answer is Super NES.
Okay. I was curious to see if you would throw in something different. But.
No, because like it's like you said, like I like World better than 3. Actually, Alex, for you, what do you like more, World or 3 for Super Mario? My man.
Oh, World. But it's not fair to ask me because it's hard to separate my experiences from World and looking
Yeah.
at them.
But I mean,
Objectively,
I would always go Super Metroid
it's
over the
very,
original
very, very,
and
very,
Link to the
very, very
Past
tough
over the
for me
original
to do
Zelda.
that.
Like,
Yeah.
So, but I think. Oh my God, Super Metroid is such a leap, and Link to the Past is
yeah,
a
because
huge
they're
leap, too.
because they're
And
made
Mega
to be
Man
like,
X
you know,
is a huge
complete
leap
games
over
and
any
not
Mega Man game
sellers
on
for Nintendo power.
NES, in
so.
my opinion.
And then that was, like I said, that's my
Yes.
point. I can't think of a better
Exactly.
generation.
Oh, exactly,
Where
yeah.
all those titles we just named and others, where it was so clear they're so much better on the new console. Because I would argue, Link to the Past. I mean, you can have the people that argue Ocarina of Time or whatever, but like, in general, I think those hold up so much better.
The
than
tides
any
have turned.
other generational leap that it's tough to argue against.
It seems most have gone back to Link to the Past, or even maybe not even Breath of the Wild, because that was like loved for a little bit, and now everyone seems to hate it now. But yeah, like Link to the Past, like it kind of like took away the crown again from Ocarina as the one people like really like. It's weird, like they kind of like fist fight every 5 years over which one people think is the best.
Well, I mean, the sheer depth of the amount of franchises that went from NES to SNES. You've even got stuff like Legend of the Mystical Ninja, the Goemon games. You've got Castlevania. You've got Contra.
Any
You've
day.
got like a million Konami franchises. You've got Super Ghouls and Ghosts over Ghosts and Goblins. I mean,
And
it just keeps going. Like it's just one
Yeah.
after another after another after another.
Yeah, and
I mean, it's
while
just
you also
Final Fantasy.
you know,
I mean, Jesus.
the
I mean,
NES
you
had
gotta say-
amazing soundtracks, but I mean, Super NES, Donkey Kong Country, any of the RPGs, Killer Instinct, like you throw out any of these soundtracks that are just holy shit. And it just changed the way also I feel like, you know, you would want to listen to that music outside of the game itself. Because I still have my Killer Instinct CD that came with the game. So it's just like, yeah, it was just
Yeah.
a game changer for all those reasons.
Yeah, I'd say the 16-bit era probably of like all the ones before PS2. I'd say that one holds up the best just in terms for all the consoles in terms of like quality, leap
Yeah.
forward from the systems before, blah blah blah. It was like that perfect little niche of gaming.
Yeah. So, all right, we all agree on this one. But like I said, I was just curious because, Jim, I thought you'd be a little more of a wild card.
No, I part of me wanted to say NES because it has more of the style of games that I would like to play, but at the end of the day, the Super NES is what I go back to more, so that's what I had to go with.
Gotcha.